Welcome to the Hypervoice, episode 42. This is a show all about Pokemon's video game championship series. I am your host, Steven Morioka, and today I am once again joined by Alex Underhill.
Hello, Steven.
Hello, Alex. It has been a long time. How have you been?
Oh, I've been doing good. It may have been a long time, but that doesn't mean we didn't keep up.
I know, very true. Just, the show's been, gone for a while, right? No easy way to avoid this fact here.
I guess it has, yeah. It just kind of fell off the face of the earth.
Very true. So yeah, this is the Hypervoice. Like we just mentioned, we talk about Pokemon's official competitive scene here. This is, all about the video game side of things. There's also the trading card game as well as Pokken Tournament. But we talk about the, video game, and the current game we're using right now is Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. But, our show has not been on in 20 months. Our last airing of episode 41, which is the previous one, was in September 2017. So it's been a while.
It has been quite a while, and now we're kicking things off. We're going to be starting this. This is going to be essentially season 2 for whatever that matters for. It doesn't really matter a ton for you guys, but it helps us keep track of things. So everything before this point was season 1. Episodes 1 through 41, if you listen to those. And from now on, we're going to start season 2, and that's going to go until Worlds.
That's right, folks. So episode 42 starts season 2 here, and we'll just announce when seasons change again. So we're trying to keep them in line as best we can with Pokemon's and VGC's official seasons here. You know how they change formats every year for qualifications as well, but it is currently May 2019, right? Been a long time since we last recorded. So, for anyone who's new out there, or maybe you've forgotten here, maybe you need a little refresher on who we are and why we're doing this show again here, or at least bringing it back. For fans of the Hypervoice in the past, you know what this show's all about, and we like to have a lot of fun, talk about competitive Pokemon here. So, both Alex and I are competitive players who've been playing for a decent chunk of an amount of time. So, Alex, if you don't mind, I'm just going to go first here, since chronologically I do come before you.
But you do have that big gap. We'll get to the gap, but...
What big gap are you talking about?
Is there no gap?
Yeah, we'll get to it later. But Anyway, I am Steven Morioka. I am a competitive Pokemon player, and I started playing in real-life tournaments in 2005. So this goes all the way. This actually predates VGC, any official VGC sanctioned tournaments. This started in the Battle in Seattle tournament, which is a singles tournament, and then I also played in the Journey Across America tour and tournament in 2006. And then we had the VGS, the Video Game Showdown, in 2008. And then VGC's first official season in 2009, and that is where I eventually pick up again. 2008 is a very different story, and we can go into that later in the future at some point. But just to briefly go over accomplishments here from the both of us, I have multiple Premier Challenge wins. I've also taken first at a mid-season showdown in the past. That was in the 2016 format. At the regionals level, I have top 8 finishes in 2009, 2011, 2014, and twice in 2016. Twice. Yeah, good one. Twice in 2016. I have a top 4 finish in 2012. That was the Salem Regional in Oregon. That was where we had our first Swiss at a regional, but no top cut. So, there you go for that one. I also have a second place finish at Fort Wayne 2012.
Wait a minute. Did that actually happen? You guys had Swiss but no top cut?
Yes, that is correct. That was the 2012 regionals.
So you just played like whatever 9 rounds, and then whoever went 9-0 or 8-1 and had the best resistance won the tournament?
That's correct.
Wow. Love this game. It's so crazy.
I know. Fun fact about that is that one of the regionals, I can't remember if it was in the November set or the April set. One of the regionals on the East Coast had a top cut bracket. It was like a practice run kind of thing. Where they had 2 flights, and they picked either the top 2 players or top 4 from each flight, and then they put them in a bracket. But that was the first time a regionals had an official top cut, really.
So wait, those players were playing for points though. You said practice, but it was not. It was legitimate. Like they were playing for placement.
Yeah, they were legitimately playing for placement. And back in the 2012 season, the championship points did not matter. So
yeah,
they existed, but they were irrelevant to how you qualified for Worlds that year.
That's funny. That reminds me of in 2016 when they had like the accidental best of 3 regional. Like not really accidental,
right?
But,
accidental in air quotes. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
They showed up like it was best of 1 all year, and then they show up and they were told after they sat down and filled out their team sheets. Actually, did we even have team sheets at that point? I don't remember.
But, yeah, that's right. Jeez.
But when they sat down thinking it was a best of 1 Swiss tournament, best of 3 top cut, and they were told, no, it's best of 3 Swiss. This is like the first time we're doing it. And yeah, that's just the kind of vibe I'm getting from hearing this from you.
Yeah, that's a very nice parallel, actually, comparing those 2 instances to those 2 different tournaments here, right?
So going forward, Steven, what else have you accomplished?
Yes, moving forward here, because we have a lot to cover in this episode. Let's see. We were just still at regionals. I also have second place finishes at Fort Wayne 2012, Madison 2013, and then finally a regionals win in Phoenix 2013. And then for nationals, I have top 8 finishes at U.S. Nationals in 2011 and 2013. I made it to day 2 of U.S. Nationals in 2014. Also the first time we had a day 2 at Nationals in North America, at least. And at Worlds, for the Worlds level, I'm a 3 times Worlds competitor in 2011, 2013, and 2016 with a top 16 Worlds finish in 2013. That is me. Now, I'm not the only accomplished player on this crew today. Alex, tell us about yourself.
All right. Well, I started back in 2010 with casual, just playing singles and stuff like that. I've been playing Pokemon for most of my life. Started with like Ruby and Sapphire and stuff, but played singles in 2010. But I didn't start VGC until 2014 when X and Y came out and made it a lot easier to breed Pokemon in game. That was a big factor for me. It was really easy to obtain your own team. So that kind of brought me into the game, and I attended my first official event at 2014 Nationals. It was kind of a funny story finding that event because I was trying to use the event locator, and I just kept ending up at like TCG events or like leagues or clubs and such, and I just could not find a premier event where they actually played VGC against each other competitively for like a tournament. So I finally ended up.
I bet that's. I honestly bet that still happens today.
Yeah, the event locator is still not advertised largely enough, and it's somewhat tricky to use because you don't know to turn off like leagues and tournaments and only to have premier events checked if you're at the event locator if you want to find the actual events that players go to compete for a Worlds invite. And so I finally ended up at 2014 Nats with some friends, and it was a really, really, really fun time. Went 5-4 after that. Played the rest of the 2015 season and wasn't able to cut anything until I made it into the top cut in 2015 at U.S. Nationals. I made it to top 8, and that was where my run ended. And that was a really, really big finish for me. But anyway, I'm kind of jumping ahead to Nats. For regional
that was your
finishes,
that's fine though, like because that was your breakout performance.
Yeah, that's true. I wasn't jumping ahead. I'm talking about my national finishes when we went with regionals earlier. But
yeah, and that's okay.
They're all accomplishments. And anyway, I talking about regionals though, I followed that up with a top 8 cut at Collinsville in 2016. I've also cut regionals like in 2019. I cut 2 regionals somewhat recently. So in the past couple of months. I've been doing a little bit better. In Toronto, I got top 4. In Collinsville, I nearly brought it back and won again, but I got second. And speaking of, I did win the Collinsville regional in 2017. And that wasn't the only regional I won in 2017. I also did win the Fort Wayne regional later that year in September, just actually after the original show had stopped. So unfortunately, we didn't get to talk about it, but maybe now I'll finally get my chance. Nationals, I mentioned I got top 8 in 2015, back when nationals were still nationals and not internationals. And I've competed at Worlds every year since 2016. So 2016, 2017, 2018, and I am already qualified for the 2019 World Championships.
Oh yeah, that's correct. So you'll be number 4 coming up soon in a few months.
If I make it to DC, got to make it there in one piece.
Yeah, very true. Fingers crossed, right? So,
yeah.
Just noticing, listening to your accomplishments there, like I heard a lot of Collinsville, like that. That's a very friendly regional to you, and you must like that one a lot, huh?
Yeah. I didn't even do that bad in the 1 year that's not listed. 2016, I managed to cut it. Then the next year, I won it. 2018, I got 10th, so I was just nearly in the cut, but I lost the last round of Swiss, and it might have been a perfect cut or something like that, but I was very, very close to making it in. And then the following year, I get second, so Collinsville is a very, very good tournament for me.
Wow, how convenient. So, both of us are pretty. We can put up a fight in these battles, right? We're pretty decent.
Seasoned players.
Okay, that's probably a more proper term, is seasoned players. Experience does not equal skill, right? So we just
seasoned, tasty, salty,
spicy. Would you call yourself spicy?
Yes, absolutely. I am a very spicy player.
I would be like a saucy player.
Ooh, saucy.
Yes, saucy.
I mean, yeah, I could put you as saucy. I like it.
All right. Anyway, so everyone's probably wondering, we had a 20-month layoff and break from the Hypervoice, and probably another thing you probably noticed is that you have not seen me at any tournaments in a long, long time. So, Alex, you haven't seen me at any tournaments in a long time.
I didn't notice. I just kind of forgot about you.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's a wrap, folks. We're done for the day.
I didn't know.
The lost and forgotten forever.
Stephen Morioka, who?
Yeah, I know. It's been a long time. So, anyway, what we were just talking about, the big question. And I noticed a lot of people were asking this over the course of the last, roughly 2 years, is what happened to the Hypervoice? Well, we finally have an answer for you, or at least I have an answer for you. And I'll go into detail about this as to why the show disappeared for so long. Why on earth are we coming back is another good question. But let's start back in 2000. There was the last tournament I played in was the North American International Championship in summer of 2017. So that was the one Christopher Kahn won back in the 2017 format. That was the last one I played in. So if you think about that, that's a long time ago. I've not been into an official tournament since. So yeah, one of the reasons for that is that right at that event, that was a heartbreaker for me. Ultimately, this came down to is I lost the passion, motivation to play the game competitively. So it just wasn't there.
Were you competing for your Worlds invite at that tournament?
Can you repeat that?
Were you competing for your Worlds invite at that tournament?
I was, yes. It was a long shot. I don't remember how high I needed to finish, but it was pretty high. Because if I recall correctly, the qualification level was 500 championship points, and I was under probably under 280 or something, maybe even lower than that.
Oh yeah, you needed a bit of a deep run.
Yeah, I needed a deep run, and that entire season, all the way up to that point, even ever since probably that winter, it was just building up to this point of where I'd had it with the game. I just didn't want to play anymore. I was just sick of everything. I didn't want to practice anymore. I didn't want to battle. I was sick of the traveling all the time. It was just really getting to me. It was too much. So, that passion wasn't there. Didn't want to practice, play, watch streams, do anything related to the game. One of the biggest things is if you want to get really good at something, you need to be obsessed with it. You need to be eating, living, sleeping, breathing that thing. So in this case, it would be competitive Pokemon, playing Pokemon in these tournaments. So that was just something I'd lost, did not want to do anymore. So I knew at that point that I was not going to be playing in the 2018 season, or at least for a good chunk in the beginning. because I did have intent to come back in for Collinsville 2018 actually, which you mentioned earlier. So, I had a team prepped and everything for that tournament, but then in real life stuff happened, so wasn't able to go to that, and then I just ended up deciding not to play the rest of the season. Another fun fact for me is that, and I also mentioned this, I messaged this out on Twitter to everybody, but if I'd played at the International in North America last summer in 2018, that would have been my 10th straight U.S. National / International to play in, and my streak stopped at 9. So sad story there. But it just I was working out in Oregon over the summer, so I was unable to attend that tournament. But yeah, ultimately,
just trying over and over to convince you to go.
I know.
And I think, was that the year you were also considering going to Brazil?
Yeah, nobody in the public knows this, but you and I were talking about this a lot.
Yes.
So I was thinking, hey, maybe if I give it a shot, I'd never been to Brazil, I can go there, play in this tournament as well. Get to hang out with Alex and hang out with the people a lot. So, yeah.
What Steven told me at the time was a big motivator for you to compete is competing with a purpose towards getting a world's invite, ultimately to compete on the biggest stage. And
yeah, still relevant. Still a relevant point.
Yeah, and so that's why you were considering going to Brazil in the first place, is that you wanted to be able to earn enough points. You wanted to give yourself a shot. Even if it was a long shot, you needed to, have that overall purpose.
Yeah, and at that point, it would have been more of a travel event or thing to travel to and have fun with.
See some friends.
Yeah, so speaking of that, I haven't seen a lot of the players, the competitors, friends for the same amount of time I haven't been playing, because I just haven't gone to tournaments. I haven't seen a lot of you folks out there who I'm friends with. I just haven't seen you in a long time, and I miss you. That was something I did not was not sick of, and I missed a lot during my time off. But yeah, what it boils down to is that drive, that passion wasn't there to play anymore, to play competitively. Now, don't get me wrong. I still loved Pokemon as a franchise. What it's done for me, and just the game in general. So I was playing a lot of Pokemon Go, just playing, doing a lot of other silly Pokemon things on the side. With all that being said, though, even with my time away from the game, having a nice long hiatus, it was really interesting to get the outsider's perspective and kind of be like a normal person without participating in the circuit at all.
Are you saying that players that compete in the circuit are not normal?
Pretty much, in a way.
Steven, I can't believe the implications of your words.
I know. It was just weird, being on the outside for that long a time and just thinking back, and it's huh. So this is what it's like. This is what normal people are like. This is what it's like to not be playing in this competitive Pokemon circuit all year long now.
There it goes again, saying that VGC competitors are just not normal.
I mean, it's not, you can argue either side here.
I do not condone this man's words. All right.
Oh boy, we're gonna have conflicts right away. All right, fair enough. But there's another point I was gonna bring up here. It was about another thing back near the tail end of the 2017 season there, as well as the middle of the winter there. Another thing that came into me not wanting to play anymore is that this came along with that loss of passion. Is that I just love video games in general, right? It's probably my number one passion in life, and I would always struggle with when we were in season for 2017, needing or wanting to practice, right? And because I'm a player that needs to practice before tournaments in order to feel ready with a certain team, but I wasn't able to. I would always feel guilty if I was playing other games just for fun, and that kind of notion of hey, Steven, you should be practicing instead. What are you doing? You should be practicing for this tournament. You still need to qualify for Worlds. You still need to get into that event, and then you can relax. But so that was always looming over my head. So I never liked that feeling either.
So while Steven kind of covered his time since the show has ended, I guess I could talk about what's been going on with me since the show has stopped, and now we are here reviving it again. first thing I will say is that it was all Steven that the show ended. I will not take any blame, even though Steven is the bulk. He carries the bulk of this show. He does most of the work. I'm just here to talk, just to hear.
Can we actually like talk about that? Like that's a really good point there. Like Alex is legitimately telling the truth. There was a point after you'd won, and I'm kind of spoiling this, but people know this already. After you won your regional, that second regional in Fort Wayne, you had asked me, "Hey, when are we gonna record the show again?" Right? And yeah. I'd essentially told you like, "Hey, I don't think I'm coming back to play this season. I can't do the show right now without being a competitor. So, and I don't want to have to burden you with all the work on the show and have to teach you everything and all that." Because at the time, just recall the mindset I was explaining to you earlier. Doing this show felt like a burden to me because it would have been tied to playing more Pokemon.
Yeah, and you were just very done with the game.
Yes.
And so I think it was, honestly, I think the real reason was just because Steven never wanted to inflate my ego and talk about my big win. So I think that's why he just had to call it there. He's like, Alex has gone too far with this recent
That's right.
event.
I can't let this relative newcomer upstage me.
Exactly. He didn't want to justify the inflation of my ego, and so he was like, I'm cutting it now.
That's right. Well, I mean, think about it, because I still only have one regional win. I've what is it?
And that was
three regional finals appearances. But so I'm 1-2, and I have one regional win. That would have been your second win there. I guess in total now for the show we're 3-3 combined. Sorry, I'm not pulling my weight.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, now you're coming back, and now it's time for you to share the load. So, since our last episode, it was at Worlds in 2017, where you got to hear, I believe it was Chris Danzo and Justin Kruba and I talk a bit about the going-ons and that whole experience, and that was a lot of fun. And we got to do kind of like a live show where we were actually at the event, recording from our hotel. I went on to win Fort Wayne Regionals. I believe it was like a week or two later. I remember it being very, very soon because it was the first week in September.
Yeah, that's right. I remember that. That was like 2 weeks after Worlds. You're back at it for the 2018 season.
And yeah, it just felt so soon to just jump right back into things. But there we were. And I was able to snag a win at the very first event of the season, if you don't count, like the Anaheim Open or whatever. But yeah, so then this put me at a very high point in the CP standings, and thus starts my journey. My journey. And
yeah,
so,
that Go ahead.
The snowball.
Yeah,
And
that quote-unquote term snowball. Well, that puts you in prime position to be ahead on the leaderboards right away.
Yeah, and so this gave me all kinds of ideas, and I was ready to kind of run with this. So I decided that since I was so far ahead in the standings, I would go to more tournaments, and I decided that I would go to London. I won $2,000 from winning Fort Wayne, and I said, all right, I can use this money as an investment to, buy my way to London, and then once I compete there, I should be able to stay at the top of the standings and ride it out to go to the rest of the international tournaments. And that essentially did happen, not to jump too far in advance, but I did well enough at London, and that was basically the story of my whole season, was doing well enough. Nothing huge. The snowball kind of convinced me to just play it safe, never try to win the tournament, just try to get CP at the tournament. I went to Memphis, which was a tournament that I normally would not go to, but I went to because I was trying to get to more events, get more CP, and from there I got to go to Australia, which was a really, really cool time. Not to mention that London was also very, very cool. And after that, I went to Collinsville, where this is the year that I got 10th at Collinsville, my worst Collinsville tournament ever. Unbelievable. And then
10th is not bad for a bottom finish there.
I know. And moved on from there. I attended some more tournaments. I went to my usual tournament, Madison, and then eventually Brazil. I don't know if there was any other tournaments in there. That sounds like about it. And Brazil was the fateful, basically like the beginning of the end. I had got 33rd at that tournament, which it was only rewarding top 32 CP. So I missed points there, which was a big setback. I went to Nats and I needed to win one more round to make it into points, and I lost the very last round of the tournament, finishing 6-3, I believe. And it was a heartbreaker. The snowball was it had a really bad effect on my life, not to get too depressing, but it just was very high stress, and it changed my outlook on Pokemon drastically, to the point that I was decided that I would go to Worlds, and after that, I would just try to take it light, not really attend tournaments anymore, just take it super easy. And
fascinating that you say all this. Put in all this work, and in the end, you don't get any of that travel award or travel stipend. So, really quickly, could you just summarize how the system, that travel award and stipend system, worked in 2018 compared to now? And then what place did you end up finishing as well?
Yeah, so worth noting that this was basically a carbon copy of the season beforehand, 2017, which we probably covered a lot in the old podcast. So, and especially for the veteran players, this is not new news to you, but and the players that listened to the show beforehand. But basically, what happened was after every international, they would look at the players in the top 8 standings. And those in top 4 would receive a travel award, which is roughly $2,500 to attend the event, to, fly there and pay for your hotel and flight. If you finished in 5th through 8th, you would receive a flat $1,000 and essentially $1,000 to do the same thing. You earned this money upon playing round 1 of the tournament. It was essentially a travel award, a travel stipend, because you had to attend the tournament. And from there, I basically saw my finish at Fort Wayne as a way to try to get to the top early and stay there. And I was essentially able to do that. I did well enough, coasting around the 7th, 8th spot for most of the season, and was able to keep myself up there, got trips and stuff, and towards the very end in Brazil, I think I fell to maybe I fell out of it, maybe I was still in it, but I knew how well I needed to do at NAIC. And then at the very end of it, as I had mentioned, I lost it. I fell off of it. I think I finished 10th behind Nick Navarre at 9th, and I believe Paul Chua snagged that 8th spot after having a very strong late season leading up to NAIC, and then making it all the way to the top 4 at NAIC. So a very strong finish from him to bring it all the way back in the end and make it into the top 8 to get that day 2 invite to Worlds. Right.
And no offense to Paul or anything. He's an incredible player, but just got his way up to 8th place. So I guess for you, just thinking internally, both all those players above you are just dang it, that I should have had that if I just did a little better,
Yes, exactly. And I think that was I think that really showed me the mindset of trying so hard at Pokemon kind of ruined the game for me. I was spending way too much time in the game and trying to play it safe, just going with what I was comfortable with, even when it might not have been the best option, just because I was so concerned on just getting points. So yeah, then it was in the fall season post Worlds, where I guess kind of to interrupt my story of what brought us to this point in the show, that they announced that 2018 format was over. Worlds had just happened. I believe they had just announced the winners. I'm not sure exactly the timing on this. I think it was announced after the matches were done. But
yeah. So Alex, really quick here. I know you're getting up to this good climax point here, but so you did manage to stay on the snowball for pretty much the entire season, correct?
Yes, yeah, I did attend all of the internationals.
Ah, very nice tour of the world there, but and then right at the end, you were unable to get that travel award and the day one buy, excuse me, for Worlds in 2018 in Nashville, right?
Yes. Yes.
And then, at Nashville, you pretty much decided like, hey, this is going to be my last big tournament for a while. And
yes.
then, sorry I interrupted you, but continue with your point.
Maybe ever at that point too. I was pretty ready to just quit Pokemon. Was just so down on the game. But yeah, then at Worlds, they announced that the format changes now, and this is something that Steven and I have talked about on the show before, and talked about it with each other personally. But the fall season, we aren't a big fan of it. It's not fun playing the format, not as much fun playing the format after Worlds, after the peak tournament has already happened, and now we are just kind of playing this out until the new games come out, really. That's just what it comes down to. And this time they said, hey, basically starting in 3 days or something. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was like starting in a week, like we're changing the format. You're going to be playing a new VGC 2019 format. And not only that, because that was a large change of its own, they announced that we would be playing cycling formats, 3 formats over the course of the year. Right.
They're like, gosh, I remember this still. It was like, so it's like, yeah, 3 mini formats all within one year in this cycle. And I actually, at the time of Worlds, I was not able to watch any of the stream because I was on a camping trip at that time, still in Oregon. But I remember when I got back from that trip, I got to see the news of what was happening, and I just couldn't believe it. It's like It's like one of those things. It's like, okay, someone's just playing a joke, and this is spread enough virally that everyone in the community is just saying, "Oh yeah, haha, we're gonna have the format's changing right away." Yeah, nice joke, everybody.
We had talked about this for so long.
I know, and then to see it actually happen and come to fruition. Unfortunately, I think it's the only time we're gonna have this for a while. Well, let's not talk about that right now. We'll get into it at some point in the future, but. Yeah, if you count VGC's the 2009 through 2012 seasons, all those 1, 2, 3, 4 years, when they only ran from 2009 to 2011, the only seasons were from May to August, so we had a short little 4-month thing. 2012 was the first full year of one format competition, so. Like we mentioned earlier, the November set of regionals, the April set of regionals, Europe would have had its nationals in April and May that year, and then Worlds in August. But then to start the 2013 season, you would be using the 2012 format again. So we really haven't had anything like this since 2012 to have full seasons as one format.
And so 2018 did get cut kind of short, for better or for worse, depending on how you viewed that format. But for a lot of people, it was a positive change because it meant that the fall formats were going to be a lot more fun. The fall tournaments, I mean. And right away, we were already tons of people at Worlds were just theorizing, what is it going to be like? What is this new format? How are we going to crack it open? Because it was no longer 2018. It was a fresh start. And
I know
that was that was a pretty dominant force in what kept me in the game, is them saying it's new. We're gonna switch things up. Not only are there gonna be a new format in the fall, but we're gonna do 3 formats over the course of the season, and that was just so exciting for everybody.
Gosh, I can only imagine what the energy level would have been at Worlds after that announcement. Just saying hey, we're switching over immediately. We hope all of you enjoy this change.
Actually, that's funny that you mentioned that, because the energy level was extremely low. And that was
you don't say. You want to elaborate really quickly?
Snuck it in. They snuck it in, essentially.
I see what you mean. Yeah, I see what you mean.
They didn't make a big everybody pay attention, this is the new format announcement. They just all of a sudden I was sitting next to Jake White, Squirrel Boy, the creator of the damage calc that all of you competitive players use. If you know about it, that's he's the one who made that. But he and I were sitting next to each other hanging out, and he just kind of bumps me and is like, "Hey, wait, look at the screen. They're announcing the new format." And I was like, "Wait, what do you mean?" and they just have this kind of like almost like a PowerPoint presentation. It just shows like Sol Galeo, and it's labeled Sun Series, and it says like these are the new rules, VGC plus restricted legends, and guess what? It starts like September 2nd or something. I don't remember. And that was 2 weeks away, and I just keep changing the number, but it was 9 days away, and it was so soon, and it just happened. They just were like, all right, this is happening, and they were talking about it, and then they changed the screen. They go to the next slide, and it says Moon Series, and they're like, this is the dates for this event. This is when this format will be going from, and it just was like blow after blow. We were just like, wait a minute, what is happening? Is this really happening? I mean, everybody was just kind of looking around, looking at each other like, what? That's impossible. How is this happening?
I know, and I was still on my break from Pokemon at the time, but even this got me really excited to come back to play again. Unfortunately, I just had a lot of I'd say by that time, like, I would have been ready to come back to play, but it was mostly just due to travels at that point. Trying to get back home after my job from Oregon ended there, and just a lot of conflicts with work and stuff, which prevented me from traveling to tournaments so far. I still haven't been to any official event yet, as of this recording. So, hoping to play sometime soon, but. So with the announcement of the 3 different series in for the 2019 format, right? It'd be a period from like September to early January was the Sun Series. Moon was shorter than the others from early January to essentially the end of March, and then Ultra Series started in the beginning of April, and that is what we're using up through Worlds. So, really quickly, could you just go through the distinctions of all 3 series here for folks out there?
Yeah, and so essentially what it comes down to, I could, give it very specific, but I'm just going to give the layman's version of the rules. And for those familiar with the 2018 format, you were playing in the Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon games, and you were allowed to use any Pokemon found within that Pokédex, which was basically every known Pokemon except like unknown. And the ban list included Pokemon like Mew, Celebi, Manaphy, all of those mythical Pokemon, and all of the cover legend Pokemon like Ho-Oh, Lugia, Rayquaza, Groudon. And what they had announced was that they would, for Sun Series, for this first format, they would allow you to use 2 of the restricted Pokemon, the cover legends, as another name for them, that you could have 2 of them on your team. But they had banned Megas, and they had banned Z-moves. And that was a really, really surprising change for people, because those were the latest mechanics that had been introduced to the game, and they had been huge for Pokemon since 2014. We had been using Megas. Megas were banned in the year 2017, but then we were using Z-moves, and suddenly they just got rid of them all. From Sun to Moon series, the only thing that changed was they allowed the use of Z-moves. And this led to the format being not drastically different, but different enough because of the Z-moves. And now we are here in Ultra Series, where the critical thing that I did not mention earlier was certain items were banned. So like the Z-Crystal for Ultra Necrozma was banned. The red and blue orbs for Primal, Groudon, and Kyogre were banned. Rayquaza, or actually just the move in general, Dragon's Ascent, was banned. So even a Smeargle couldn't use it. But now they allowed all of those things. They allowed Mega Evolution. And so it's just kind of a combination of everything. We have Megas, we have Z-moves, we have the strongest legendaries that you can have access to. We have Ultra Necrozma, and it's been crazy so far. That's where we are now. That's the format that we are currently playing as of the time of this podcast. And we'll be playing that format until Worlds and at Worlds. After that point, which we don't know what'll actually happen. They just mentioned that this format, the Ultra Series format, will be going until Worlds.
Yeah, that's a mystery. Let's try to solve that another time.
I'm excited for it.
Because we have a lot to say about that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But
So I guess
yeah. So you pretty much knocked it out of the park with the series, or I guess the distinctions between the series here. I think a lot of people compared the Sun and Moon series to be pretty similar. Just the Z moves added more of a nuking option for some of the Pokemon, and then maybe a few others were able to get a little stronger with the use of that. Probably most notably Volcarona, if anything. And then Ultras.
Lunala?
Oh, Volcarona.
No, Lunala.
No, Volcarona.
What?
The bug fire moth.
I know, and I'm saying, Steven, you've been out of the game for a while. You don't know what's relevant and what's not, and I think Lunala was probably a bit.
I've been mildly paying attention, but yes, Lunala as well as Volcarona. Okay, fine, whatever.
We can do both.
Yes, both are applicable to this comparison here, but and then Ultra was pretty different. Would you say it's pretty different from the other two series?
Oh, it's been entirely different.
Fascinating. I can't wait to hear more, talk more about this.
Yeah, we'll have to get to that at a later point because there's just so much to cover, and that's basically what it's going to be happening from this point on. Is Steven and I are going to be breaking down what's happening in the game as of now. You know, talking about current events, but also talking about past events, talking about old events, talking about different topics and such. Whether it's like players' mindsets or team building and just different things like that.
That's right. So let's get back to talk. You just mentioned mindsets there. Let's talk about your mindset heading into the 2019 season. How it's maybe a little different from 2018. You're trying to take a step back from the game, maybe not go so intense into the circuit, into the tournaments anymore. But then stuff happened. Just go ahead and tell your story on this year.
Yeah, so they took away my regional. I won Fort Wayne, and it didn't come back.
Oh, that's right.
So,
there was no Fort Wayne. So you're still defending champion.
Oh yes, I am still the Fort Wayne regional champion.
Still the Fort Wayne defending regional champion. All right.
Till the day I die, apparently, because they're not going to give anybody else a chance for that title. But
yeah, I mean, you never know. You never know if it'll come back.
I'm hoping because it's gone. I had to go kind of out of my way. I had mentioned that in 2018 I went to Memphis Regionals, but
right.
Memphis Regionals is not a tournament that I would normally go to. It's a 7-hour drive or 8-hour drive, something like that. And my hand was a bit forced, and I had no tournament in the Sun Series format that I could go to that was closer. So I made it down to that event again. I did okay. I finished, something like 10th again, where I just missed the cut in the last round. But that was good enough for me. I got to my one event, got to hang out with friends, and got to experience the Sun Series format besides locals and such.
Right. I'm also very glad you have high expectations of yourself. Saying 10th was bad for you, but I'm proud of you.
Oh well. yeah. I always expect bigger and better things. Always try to improve. But going forward, I think my next tournament wasn't until Collinsville Regionals, and going into that tournament, I didn't have a great idea of what I was what I was thinking about the format. I had played a bit of Moon, but not a ton. I had played a lot of I don't want to go too specific into teams, but basically on the way down, I had discovered a team, and that I was pretty sure would be a good fit for me. And I had basically just pirated it off ladder, off of Pokemon Showdown. And the creator of the team is Santino Tarquino. Hope I said his name right. But he, and I have since talked to him about the team, but I just kind of took that and I was able to get second at Collinsville, which was really surprising for me. And at this point, I do have to go on a tangential point and explain that the travel awards this season are being done differently. And basically what they did was they decided that while they enjoyed giving out travel awards and stipends to the internationals, they didn't like the system where it always rewarded those on top, and the players on top stayed on top and remained on top. And so they instead tried to do their best to mitigate it. They definitely made it a bit more interesting. We've still seen a lot of the same players at the top getting all the travel awards to the different internationals. But the way that the new system works is they take all the points earned in between internationals and use that to apply to the following international. So the first section...
Right, so that travel award and stipend system kind of resets after every international so that everyone gets...
exactly.
Yeah, gets kind of a fair shot at it again. So it is fairer. But those top players are just... they're still getting high finishes at these tournaments, so not much you can do about that. Except beat them.
And I think it's worth noting that while they'd attempted to kill the system, these players are still getting travel awards to the following international, which is in the next cycle. And so that is something that helps these players stay at the top, is that they're able to go to an international. Attending an international is the best way to remain at the top for these points, for these travel awards. And so that's why for most of the season, we've seen the same players up at the top.
Yeah,
anyway.
So that's a good point. So, fundamentally, I guess you could say things haven't really changed over the last 2 years, but
Yes.
Pokemon is at least taking steps to mitigating these factors and try to balance it out a little bit more. So, we'll see what's to come in the future.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll break down the travel awards a bit more further down the line, but the reason I mention it now is just because it's relevant to my season and what brought me to the point I am today. And Collinsville, again, was basically at the beginning. When I had won Fort Wayne and used that money to go to London. This was right after the Australia International. I think actually just 1 week post London or Australia. Yeah, Australia International.
Yes, I can corroborate that.
So I once again told myself, all right, I'm at the top of the leaderboards here at the beginning. Can I capitalize on this? And so I decided to go to Toronto, which was very cool because that was my first experience ever getting to go to Canada. I got to see like Niagara Falls and stuff. So I did make the trip worth it, but I also went to Toronto and would use this same team again to make it all the way to top 4 at that event. So 2 back-to-back strong finishes. This is my first time ever cutting 2 regionals in a row. And
hey, good job.
That was, yeah. And so I used that to propel myself towards the top of the CP standings and used these 2 finishes to warrant a trip to Berlin, to the European International again. And so here I was using strong finishes to pay my way to a European International because I knew that if I went, it would pay off in the end. And so there, sure enough, it did. Just a week or 2 ago, I think it was a week ago, now, that I went to Berlin, Germany, and I was able to lock my position in the top 4. And so I earned a trip to the NAIC. I will be getting $2,000 for that. And then I also am now in 7th place in the overall CP standings. And here I am again.
Yeah, so after all this time, wanting to take a more laid-back approach into the game, take a step back, relax a little more, you're back in the mix, like heavily back in the mix in a heated contest in this very coveted position. So, describe the mindset difference between last season and this season, and like where do you stand moving forward here? Like, what are you thinking right now?
Yeah, it was really crazy, really shocking for me to once I realized that I was at the top again, and I was basically right where I was a year ago. However, that mindset difference, like you mentioned, was huge. This year, I did just take it very casually. I showed up to Collinsville just unpracticed. That's not a word, but we're pretending it's a word. I showed up to Collinsville unpracticed and just, kind of went with my gut and just played Pokemon. And I was able to do so well just because I kind of believed in the team that I was using, believed in myself. and I trusted myself to do it again in Toronto, and sure enough, I did. And from there, it just kind of happened. I don't know. I was just realized where I was, and I was like taking things a lot less seriously, just playing it for fun. Like the team that I used for most of Moon Series, the hard Trick Room team that Santino built, just really made me love Pokemon again. And Moon Series was not a popular format amongst a lot of people, but it will always hold a special place in my heart because of that team. That team just made things so fun again. It really revived a lot of my joy in playing Pokemon. And now I'm back in it, and I got to tell myself going forward that I've done good enough. I got a trip to Berlin. I'm getting paid to go to Columbus, Ohio again. It is in Columbus this year, right? I don't even remember. But I'm getting paid to go there, and so I'm going to try to just take it easy, not stress myself over it too much. But I know I say those words, but it's going to be impossible. So we'll see how the rest of the season shakes out. I'm going to try to keep using that casual fun mindset to push me to higher finishes, but we'll see how it goes.
So Alex, yeah, that's a great great point you make there about, taking it easy. Just relax. Don't have to invest so much of your brain power and mind power into this game, where it kind of takes over your life in a way. But exactly. One really quick comment on just you as a player here. So you've kind of become notorious for using these hard Trick Room teams. How do you react to that? Do you like having this kind of I don't know what the word here is, but like a description kind of tethered to you?
Yeah. I would say it's like a characteristic or something like that.
That's a better word. Thank you.
I love it. I think that's a fine way to look at me as a player, is that I have this tendency to want to make hard Trick Room work. And it was what led me to creating my favorite team ever, the one that I used to win the Fort Wayne Regional. It was a hard Trick Room team. My career began with a semi-Trick Room team in 2015, and I've always just been a big fan of Trick Room. It's a popular, move in the game in general, but I like to kind of go all in on it. And the reason I do enjoy it so much is because it makes the games so much easier. I don't like to think harder than I have to. And I try to put in as much thinking as I can into the team building. So that way, during the games, the team just kind of plays itself. And from there, it's just, flow charted, and I'm hitting hard with heavy damage. And that's really what Trick Room allows me to do, is it allows me to play quick, fast games where I know everything I need to do. And yeah, it's very fun because hard Trick Room teams are very team building focused, not very play focused, because normally it's either you win or you don't.
Right, because once you kind of get into the grind in the games with those with the Trick Room teams, especially if you're an opponent of it, you either know, kind of right away, it's like, oh snap, I already lost this game, or it's like, I have a very weak out here. It's a very low chance for me to win this game, and low I'm gonna rely on some luck here, but yeah, you kind of know early on whether you've got that game sealed up or not, huh?
Yes, exactly. And, I don't like thinking. Thinking is, overrated. I like to just let the team play for me. Thinking
is very overrated. So, we'll probably talk about this again at some point, but how was your trip to Germany? Did you see a lot of cool things, meet some people?
Yeah, so I did get to explore a lot of Germany. I did a ton of walking, and I was exhausted afterwards, but we saw a lot of sights, and this time I made the decision, the right decision, that I didn't make in London, where I decided to just forego going to the venue pretty much ever again after the first day. I did not make it to the second day of competition, and so I decided I'm not going back. I mean, I have a lot of Pokemon friends that I'm going to be touring the city with. I would see a lot of those friends, later, whether it was for dinner or something, and I just didn't care to watch any more Pokemon. I did not want to watch finals, so I just spent the time, being in Berlin, being in Germany, as opposed to just being in a VGC venue.
Yeah, I think time well spent. You can always catch up on the stream later. So I think a wise decision.
And so that was a big part of the Germany trip for me, was just spending time doing that, doing what I guess what I just already said. But yeah, that is not the most recent major. We will kind of cover what results have happened since our leaving, since the show stopped next time, since we're kind of pushing things a bit long already. But yeah, we will cover all the results that have happened, the major ones, and what we've seen in the 2019 season as well since we've left. All right, and we're back from that ad break. If there's no ads there, I guess nobody wanted to pay to be an ad in our show, so I guess we'll get working on that. But jokes aside, I did want to say that I'm sorry if I sound a little bit out of it now. One lifestyle change that has happened to me since we stopped the show was that I have now graduated from college and am working a 9-to-5 job, so Alex gets tired at the end of the day, and so I'm doing my best to hold it all together to get for you guys.
Oh, poor baby.
I know. I need to go to bed, man. I'm so sleepy. But we did have one last thing that we wanted to talk about before we let you guys go and go about your day. Hopefully you enjoyed it so far and enjoy what's to come. But we wanted to talk about Pokemon Sword and Shield, because of course we have to. Steven and I always get so hyped up for the new games and for almost anything Nintendo. Not to speak for you, Steven, but I know that we're both pretty big Nintendo fanboys.
Yes, sir.
And Steven, tell me, what are your thoughts on Sword and Shield so far?
So I remember when they had announced, like, hey, we're gonna have an announcement for the new Pokemon games coming to Switch, right? So that was Nick, very exciting. Like, either it was like 2 days, a day, or a few hours, whatever it was. But with the titles Sword and Shield, I was just thinking, should have seen this coming with the earlier release of Meltan and Melmetal. Should have seen, had something having to do with steel or forging things, whatever. Anyway, that map looks gorgeous. The graphics, not super impressive, but they look good, right? So,
nothing new, nothing old.
Yeah, just an honest opinion there. So it's gonna be on the Nintendo Switch. First main series game on those, and the Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon were the last ones on the 3DS. So this leads us to the question is, what are we going to be playing for VGC 2020? Are we even going to have a VGC 2020 season? All those answers and more to come in the future. But for now,
can't wait to talk about those.
Yeah, we'll have to figure out something like how's all that going to work. Well, we'll come up with a whole discussion about that at some point. Anyway, I want to get some quick thoughts from you, and then who's a front runner for your starter?
So, in general, I'm just very excited that it seems to be a UK-based region. The map looks really, really cool. Other than that, I don't have a ton of thoughts because I don't think we've got a ton of information other than what you had just mentioned as the tail end of your question there is starters, and that's something that I very much do have an opinion on. And it's all the Grookey's the only one that matters. I'm getting right to it. It's Grookey.
Okay, so Grookey is your number one. That was the grass type one.
Yes.
And for me, if you know me, if you've listened to the show before, and if not, I'll just tell you right here. But for me, every generation I always go with the fire starter. So for me, it's never like, okay, which starter am I going to pick? It's just, what does the fire starter look like? That is...
Which one do I get?
That is the one, that is always my question is, okay, what's the fire starter look like? What am I going to get here?
And why is it that way again, Steven?
It's just the thing I do. I always take the fire starter. Back when I first started playing Pokemon with my brother and my sister, I always chose the fire type. My brother always chose the water type, and my sister always chose the grass type. So we always stuck with that. My sister would stop playing after the third generation, and then my brother Wesley he also used to play VGC. He's pretty much for all intents and purposes, he's retired now. He has not played in any official event since 2016. Hasn't tried in a season since 2014. So But he's the former United States national champion in 2010. He's also won a regional and took second place in a regional in the 2014 season. But yeah, so anyway, that was the story about the fire starter. But yeah, I'm all for Score Bunny.
I don't know, man. I don't know about Score Bunny. I actually don't have much of a problem with any of these starters. They're all pretty cool, but Grookey's he just vibes with me. Definitely the coolest.
Everyone's got their own thing, and I'm always gonna be biased towards the fire starter anyway, so best to just leave it at that. That's for me. But
yeah,
I guess this has been our show, our first show back, May 2019, start of season 2.
Yeah, and for those wondering why now, because we did kind of talk about the seasons and how they will line up with the VGC seasons. It's just this was the right time for us to get back into it, and sure, we could have put it off, but we'd rather just get back into it. We were both excited to get this going again. We both love doing the show, talking Pokemon with each other, and kind of just filling that void in the community, because for those people that really enjoy podcasts, there's not a lot in the game right now. And really happy to be back at it.
Yeah, just the face out in the market for competitive Pokemon is very sparse. So just trying to fill that void. Also, this is just something fun we like doing before, so we're happy to be back at it. We've been prepping this comeback for at least 2 months now. So this has been a long time coming. The show coming back is a long time coming. I hope all of you listeners out there are thrilled and happy that we are back. We'll be back for a while here. And yeah, this is just something we were very interested in doing. And I kind of want to disagree with your point there of this being the right time, or finding a time. I knew personally for me, there's never going to be a right time to bring the show back, whether it was at the start of a new season or in the middle at some point, or for me personally in life. I just knew at some point the show is going to come back. So here we are at this random time in the middle of May in 2019.
What I was trying to say is the right time is ASAP.
Oh, that you can't argue with. I agree with that. Yep.
Because I wanted this back, man. I'm excited.
I know. I'm glad to be back. So glad to be back. This has been fun. Well, we hope all of you listeners out there have also had fun and enjoyed listening to our show and its comeback. You can also feel free to check out all of Season 1, Episodes 1 through 41. Take a look back into the history of competitive Pokemon over the last, that would have been August 2016 to September 2017. Anyway, feel free to check out Season 1 if you'd like to. No obligation. Just a little plug for ourselves. But anyway, you can find us in a lot of other places on the internet. The show ourselves. I'm going to go into detail about our different places you can find us online for this episode, and then I'll cut it short in the future. But to close up shop here for this episode, you can find our show on Podbean, which is our host site for this show. You can find it on there. Just search for The Hypervoice. You can also find us on iTunes. You can also leave us a review there, because that helps with visibility so others can discover the show. We want to try and grow our show, grow the information, grow the player base, right? To hopefully educate, entertain more folks out there about competitive Pokemon, the official scene out here. Another new feature we have for you listeners, which we did not have in the past, is we now have a Facebook group. It's just The Hypervoice. You can look for it on there. Search for us on Facebook. It's The Hypervoice. You can send us a request to join that group, and we'll just approve you. Either Alex or I will do that. No problem. We'll get you in there. You can talk with us. You can give us feedback about the show if you have something that you'd like to comment on. Maybe you want to suggest some topics, ask us any questions, or just let us know. Let us know if you liked it, what you did or did not like about the show. That's actually extremely valuable for us in terms of growing the show, moving forward, all those kinds of things. And then, lastly, for now, we're the show. Well, not for now, but lastly, the show now has its own Twitter account, so you'll be able to follow The Hypervoice on Twitter, and that is at The Hypervoice. That is TheHypervoice. Go ahead and follow the show. We're going to be tweeting out a lot of different features, questions, asking for feedback there as well. However you want to communicate with us, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, and then other modes which will be coming in the future. You can also, if you want to be a little bit more anonymous, at least from the public, you can email us at vgchypervoice@gmail.com. Send us an email. Let us know your feedback. You can also send us questions there as well. And then you can also follow our personal accounts at on Twitter as well. I am at Super Morioka. That is SUPERMORIOKA. And Alex, where can we follow you?
You can follow me at Lexicon VGC. That is LEXICON VGC. And please, if you do have questions, send them in. We want to try to talk a bit more about what you guys want us to talk about. So do let us know what you want to hear from us. But
folks, yeah, this has been our first show back from the Hypervoice. We hope you've all enjoyed it. So stay tuned for more. Alex, do you want to say bye or Alola or something?
Oh, is this the part where I say Alola? Alola. Put in the whole thing.
Yeah, we're all good.
No,
stay tuned for more of the Hypervoice.
No, put it in like the whole. Put in the whole thing where I say like, am I supposed to say? Because I want it.
Oh yeah, I'll keep it. No worries. I'll keep it at the end there.